Hello everyone, I'm Marilyn Hawes with Unprecedented TV, but for my show Heart and Soul, and you can find us on YouTube under Unprecedented TV. I'm also CEO of a charity called Freedom from Abuse, which seeks through training to prevent child abuse, or any abuse actually, of which there's far too many in society. So for Heart and Soul, I like to invite anyone with a lived experience or an interesting story to tell to come on as a guest on my show. So if you have a situation that you think, actually, you know, this needs to be given more oxygen, people just walk away from some situations that are, in fact, other people's reality, and they like to live in this little bubble. Well, I'd quite like to burst that bubble and kick the elephant out of the room. And with some of the topics we have to deal with on my show, that is what we have to do. But I think this might be more gentle today, because I'm very pleased to interview a long-time friend and contact of mine called James Wilding, and he's from my own sector, education. So James, good morning and welcome. Thank you for being on my show.
Good morning, Marilyn. And it's a lovely sunny spring day. The winter is behind us, thank goodness.
No, it's foggy here, unfortunately. So, James, I want to start at the beginning because I want to start with how you got into this. What did your parents do? Were they teachers?
Well, actually, to be honest, before my dad became anything, he was served in the back end of the Second World War, didn't actually see action, and his lovely life in the military was spent playing cricket across the German playing fields. And my mum was the daughter of a tobacconist in the Finchley Road, and they at that time, of course, people came out of the war and there was an opportunity for education. Universities opened up, and King's College London welcomed them both in to do a history degree. They fell in love, and but during the process at King's, they became actors and did all sorts of things.
Wow.
And they always said that the best degree you can get is a 2-2. It shows you did lots of other things at university. So I've always been competitive, Marilyn. So when I got my degree, I got a 2-1. You know.
I mean,
and then Dad and Mum eventually ended up in education in the early 50s. And at that time, there were just the baby boomer generation had happened. The kids were born, but there weren't enough schools, particularly in West London, Isleworth, and so on.
I'm just going to stop you there for a moment, because from these very humble beginnings, James is now the principal emeritus for Clare's Court Independent Day School in Maidenhead. And I have to say, as I was saying to my producer earlier, so James, what are you doing there then? Have you handed everything lock, stock and barrel over to other people?
Well, to be fair, I think one of the great interests that LTC had of us was we've got a great management team, 3 heads working underneath me. And so essentially I was then promoted out of doing anything useful, except that I'm now Emeritus Principal in charge of the stratosphere. So all the relationships that sit around our school that I built up over 50 years, I've got the job of looking after. So I've got projects of new music schools going in, of relationships with 50 sports clubs and the like. So effectively, there's a taper. So effectively, after about 18 months, if I manage to hand over everything, then it'll be done.
Wow, I mean, I don't know what you're on, but I'd love to have it bottled by the,
It's called late onset ADHD.
Oh, right, okay. Can I ask you, because it's a really simple question, but why Clare's Court? Why did you call it that? I was thinking it might be the name of your mother or something like that, but it wasn't, was it? How did you get to Clare's Court?
Well, the house my mum and dad bought in Maidenhead was called Clare's Court. Back in the Second World War, it had been just an empty holiday mansion for the Thames Riviera in Maidenhead, and the Romanian royal family, or rather the males of the Romanian family, came in and lived in the place in the 30s, and the house was called Brookwood. And when they obviously have to leave before the Second World War got underway, there was an empty building, and up came 2 orders of nuns from the south coast and amalgamated their little convent schools onto the site of Brookwood. Well, once the convent discovered just the appalling reputation of what Romanian male princes get up to in Maidenhead. In those days, Marilyn, if the question a wonderful woman would be asked would be, are you married or are you from Maidenhead? And so as a result of it, the convent couldn't keep its name of Brookwood, and they decided to name it after their sister superior, Clare. So hence Clare's Court.
Oh, how interesting.
We didn't know any of this, by the way, until lockdown, and my brother, with nothing to do as the administrative principal of my school, decided to go researching and found
Love
out
brotherly love creeping in there.
Yes.
I am fascinated in, and if you could just give a 2-minute explanation of all of these graded things, right? So you have a brilliant document that you just released. I think it was on LinkedIn. I found it. 50 years and counting, leadership, management, and teaching through the ages. Now, I would have been a baby boomer, so that's the first decade. What in 2 minutes did that present? Because I thought I had a perfect childhood.
Well, you did have a perfect childhood. And when Mum and Dad set up my school, or our school, the termly fees were 20 guineas, which is, of course, £21. And your average bank manager, doctor, head teacher would earn $3,000 a year at that time. So effectively, paying termly fees was about kind of literally a kind of 1/20th of their taxable income. It was dead easy to actually invest in private education those days. So we had the first 19 kids where there was people just from normal walks of life could afford it, and as a result of which the school quickly grew. Now, when I came into education in the early mid-1970s, the baby boomers' children were in the school, and of course their mums by and large didn't work, as a result of which the mums kind of worked out how the kids were going to get to school. Not many cars around, maybe they walked to school and the like. I remember that Mrs. Lindquist, literally the chiropodist, just lived opposite the school. So we were easy destination. And those baby boomer children just had the absolutely ideal childhood. There was riches beyond the dreams of avarice. There was the Beatles and all that kind of free love and so on.
Free love, I was going to say free love.
I mean, we played conkers. There were no risk assessments about these things.
We played marbles and all of that stuff. So
fantastic.
So do you think is a benefit having the perfect childhood?
No, not at all, because there wasn't enough relationship friction. And the thing is, there wasn't enough relationship friction with doing well academically. So bit by bit, we became better at doing these things. So that next generation, as baby boomers then became dual income earners, suddenly we think, oh, goodness me, I've got to go and get a job. As a result of which, that next generation coming through had to look after their kids in schools like mine. So we extended the day, had a longer day, we had after school clubs and so on. As a result of which, I think that was the best time, because I remember in the early 1980s, every single one, I had 28 boys by then in year 11, what we call then S3. And of the 28, 27 had little under 50cc motorbikes. At the end of the day, just 28 motorbikes went, or 27 motorbikes went off, and the poor little orphan child without a motorbike was a bit sorry for himself. Actually, of course, by the end of the year, they'd all crashed their motorbikes, and that generation lasted on motorbikes for about 2 years.
But I remember when I was teaching at that time, they were all called latchkey kids, weren't they? I mean,
yes,
even if they weren't or not, I do remember that expression. Really do remember that expression. Right, that's interesting that because I think also that era I think my kids call themselves Thatcher's children. I think.
Yes, and of course that generation lasted a long time, and we actually saw, shall we say, the benefits of having a not a benign oligarchy, but just a rule of politics that went on long enough for things to stabilise. Yeah. Unfortunately, at the end of that, as we know, every perfect reign comes to absolutely catastrophic conclusion, and we had the collapse of all sorts of things in the early 1990s, by which time my brother and I had managed to expand the Clare's Court to 450 boys, and the local convent school fell on its sword and said, oh, hang on a minute, can you save us? We've got £1.something million debt to NatWest. What can you do? And so NatWest let us buy it for £1, so we could trade. So we trade the school out of its debt. Even now, look, all those years on, we've got schools getting into trouble, particularly charities, because it's so sad.
It is very sad. I mean, when did you start taking in girls then?
Well, 1993. Well, basically, we adopted about 140 girls. And in those days, it was very clear that most of the 450, 460 boys in our school didn't have a sister. So essentially, there we were thinking, the school had 250 girls in it. By the time, and we bought it in April, by the time we got September, I think about 100 already given their notice in, not for fear of this old man coming in, but because I was young and dynamic those days, but actually because, the school was threatened and time to move on. But within the next 10 years, then suddenly families with boys and girls came into the school. What was unique about us then, we never brought the boys and girls together. And to this day, we know adolescent boys and girls growing up differently are very different in terms of emotional and social development. And so we're still diamond at secondary level, but at primary level, we've got the wave of full co-ed coming through. It's got up to year 2 now. My grandchild's in year 3. He loves playing rugby and football and netball with the girls in the next class, but he doesn't need to be in the same room with them because he doesn't even see gender. He just gets on at his level, dare I say, playing conkers and that kind of Now, those latchkey kids love their life, but of course they then sadly become parents, and suddenly then they realise that they need to look after their kids a bit better, and so there was that kind of millennial approach to life where.
Millennial kids,
millennial kids, and the parents, of course, bought helicopters and snowplows. And suddenly, because these parents became world experts in education, there was this thing that they brought up the perfect kids. What's fascinating now, we've got Gen Z parents in the school, and the anger between Gen Z parents and millennial parents is bunkingly obvious. I mean, I can't tell you how angry they are, because it's the Gen Z parents. You've given your kids phones. You've given them. You're the
rightly so.
You won't even allow them to have resilient childhood and damaging relationships. Apparently, for you, if the kid can't read, you'll get a diagnosis that it's because of this, and it's not like that at all. We've got the Gen Z are actually turning out to be rather good parents. But the latter end, I have to say, millennials are fabulous parents as well. They go and support their kids everywhere. And it's not quite as abrupt as that, but very notional difference between that.
Yeah, I've heard that in other schools, though, James, as well, that the Gen Z parents are much more switched on to what their children have in their hand. I mean, I get irritated when they get, a 7-year-old has a smartphone. Why? I can understand they need phones, but there needs to be some direction and overview on it. But I mean, that is interesting. But I have heard that from other schools that I've gone into. Now, what is interesting for me, because I've never heard of this, is we're now going to be at some point going into Generation Alpha.
Yeah. So the very clear issues we've got moving forward are demonstrated in countries like Sweden. What happened there was, as soon as you had smart stuff, Sweden said, look, we can save all the money out. We don't need paper. We'll just go fully over to digital textbooks, digital writing and the like. And once they've done that, suddenly Sweden have seen the cognition of its adolescents drop. It's been very obvious in America, where the upper 50% have actually stayed bright and lively. Go to Harvard and you're going to be as good or better than you and I. But the bottom 50% have seen their numeracy and literacy age drop to 7. I mean, can you imagine having a population of adults coming into the workplace with a literacy and numeracy age of 7 because they haven't actually been involved in this business called academic learning and dare I say, the kind of need for relationship trauma. You actually got to have that. You've got to learn how to fail and the like. So
absolutely.
Sweden have now just gone literally back to, they banned screens entirely, back to all handwriting. And the thing is, there's absolutely a middle way, which is trusted around about 70 to 80% stuff on paper, stuff with hands, stuff with playing, and maybe no more than 30% on screens, and almost never send too much home on screen, because when the kids get home, they need to get into a routine of home. And home's got to remember, have baskets at the bottom of the staircase. You've got a device, it doesn't go upstairs.
That's right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I'm interested in talking about boys and girls as well, how you keep them separate to some of the time. Because I've always said, and I get shouted down because I was in a school the other day, or no, a year ago, actually, not the other day, pronoun badges and all this stuff. And, and I've always felt through my teaching career that boys are different to girls. They learn differently. So my thing was music. And I found that the boys were always up for syncopated rhythm and rocky type stuff. And the girls were quite happy to sing "Oh, for the Wings of a Dove," you know. But I think they are different. They are wired differently. And I don't understand all this. And what I really move fast forward now really irritates me, and I'll be interested on your take on this, is how all the boys now are going to be told if they're naughty boys, they're going to have stuff on misogyny. I mean, seriously? Talk about, for me, I think that's completely emasculating them. I really do. I mean, I know in your school, if somebody steps out of line, you manage it. You're not going to stick them on a course of misogyny. Or am I talking out my rear end?
No, not at all. So one of the great experts in this field from our country is the former head of Thorpe Hall in Essex called Andrew Hampton. Yes. And Andrew has produced 3 particular vital things of evidence for us. One, the whole nature of how girl relationships are really difficult to navigate, and they find that particularly difficult between the age of 9 and 13 because they daren't break ranks. They must have a best friend, and if as soon as they fall out with their best friend, they're thrown off the social raft. The hence girls on board. Keep them on board. Now, what that means is, I'll give you a scenario. So Leah goes home and says to Mum, "I've been bullied at school by Georgina. What am I going to do?" So Mum gets in touch with school to say, "My daughter has been bullied at school by Georgina. Where are we going to go to?" And of course, the school then contacts Georgina, and she said, "Well, actually, what happened was Bethany said this, and Mia said that." There's a lovely little scenario between Dad and the youngest daughter in Outnumbered, where he just asks her the question that takes us through the routine. And what Andrew says is, when a problem like this emerges, just start off the fact what you've got when you talk back to the mum. You say, "Look, this is relationship friction, not bullying. And actually, let's go through this and let's surface with the girls in a whole school gathering for the class or the year group concerned. Just that chatter through. Let's kind of where's the relationship friction coming from?" And once you have the right question being asked the girls, they'll tell you. But blame a girl, and she knows that other girl, she'll never talk to her again in her life. Now, Marilyn, you remember those times because you're a grown-up, but that time of being an adolescent is the hardest time for children to grow up.
Do you know, honestly, James, I will never forget Hilary Webster. She, I would have said bullying, but relationship friction then, and there was a lot of envy and jealousy that I was always chosen to be on the stage for acting and she never was. I'll never forget her name. Hilary. I'm frightened of anyone called Hilary. I mean, I can't forget her name. But the boys, I mean, do you see in your school a massive negative input from Andrew Tate? Have you had that in your school with the boys?
Let's be fair. The evidence shows, number one, that if a boy is going to see pornography, it's going to be on his smartphone in school break times. So misogyny is actually a learned experience about how to enjoy being a peer male in your adolescence. And that's a real problem for people, because that's why parents must not allow boys to go upstairs and look at smart stuff, because it will just always degenerate into that problem area. And it doesn't really matter where you go with that. I remember when my family have an outreach party in Dubai, and the elder boy, who's now in year 5, was asked about 7 months ago, had he come across the name Tate? And of course, yeah, we're all talking about it. What does it mean? I don't know. You know, in other words, they learn the concept of bubble gum before actually ever getting in touch with it. But then suddenly they start using language even before they've got experience of it. And that's when we find, when we do work with year 7, year 8, year 9, they absolutely know all the stuff. And the trouble is, it's connected with, leave alone the bad stuff. You know, he's got a Ferrari. And I mean, you know, it's the dinky toy generation grown big. And so you've got to really be careful about dealing with this. Hence, Andrew Hampton's second book, I'm not his salesman, by the way, called Working with Boys. I had a really lovely friend I played golf with, and he said the best bit of advice you ever gave me about growing my son when he was 10 or 11. He said, never, ever, ever humiliate your son. It's exactly the same as girls. You must never humiliate him. And of course, what dads do, they humiliate their children.
Yes.
And that's wrong. And mums humiliate them.
I totally agree with you there. I've seen it when I was teaching. You hear it. Oh my gosh, if you go and watch your grandchildren do any sort of sport at a weekend, you hear, the dads, someone they're standing on the touchline and they're like, I mean, it's just awful. As do some of the coaches. I mean, some of the coaches are absolutely awful the way they talk to the children and shouting at them and humiliating them. You are never going to get the best out of them ever. And a lot of children these days, because they are more coming forward, they will actually give it all back to you, or they just close down, won't they? I'm not being spoken to by that too. And frankly, rightly so. There are some people that I still say should not be in teaching. So you were...
Wait, there's an end to the story. So we're coming off the golf course. His boy's just got GCSEs and he gets 7, 8s and 9s. And the dad relates to me the story, and thank you, James. I said, don't forget, Roger, you can actually now humiliate him. And looked at me, absolutely. Why now? He said, because now he needs driving lessons from you. So as a result of which, bear in mind, you won't learn to drive a car safely if you're just being nice to a child, So
well,
anyway.
This is the thing. This is when I was the deputy head, I can always remember parents that have a new baby, they'd come in and go, what can I give them? What can I give them? Your time. It's free. Give them your time, and don't always come out with the big guns. Listen to them. Even my kids now, they're older and grown up. If I've done Sunday lunch, they can put their phones away, even though they was 30 and 40 years old. I don't, it's rude. Communicate with people. It's rude. So let's go on to when you're an inspector, because not only do you have all this with Clare's Court, you've also got a stonking career with the Independent Schools Association. I mean, you've been a trustee of that. Are you still a trustee of it?
Well, I am, and it looks as though I'm managing to survive being a trustee until 2028, which is when our association is 150 years old. Now, so it was founded, dare I say, in 1878. You can do the math, so therefore 150 years old. And there is no member, trustee, or even serving head from the last century, the 20th century, in my association. Now, as you know, Marilyn, I got a portrait of Dorian Gray in the loft. So when I come to those celebrations in 2028, I'm going to come back as a founding member of ISA, because my school that we bought in 1993, actually Maidenhead College was a founding member of ISA all those years back ago.
Oh. And so for people that don't understand, you don't go into a school. I mean, you are under that umbrella are the inspectorates, aren't they? The inspectors.
I've done so much of that. I've left it behind now, because you get to the stage whereby the latest cycle called F23, it's the worst hybrid you could possibly have, because again, it's choosing to be both an MOT service, which it should be, and also this kind of glorification of school. Oh, look what the inspector said about us on one day, imagine what the people owning the Premier Inn in Maidenhead think after the disaster in recent months of giving a door key to a rapist. I mean, your reputation is only as good as one day, so don't do that. Just give schools at MOT. Ofsted have done exactly the same thing. They've tried to soften them, make sure it just has an MOT as a regulatory requirement, and let that school develop its reputation locally for all the things it has to do, which is reach out to community, become far more part of the world in which it's living in, as opposed to this thing hiding behind a banner saying Ofsted, we're excellent, we're outstanding.
Well, I agree. I mean, it's caused so much damage, and I still don't like seeing teachers so stressed. Like, oh, with any luck, we've missed the inspection. Something else has happened. He's gone away somewhere. We won't probably get the inspection until next term. They are still terrified of the inspection, aren't they? And the band of people turning up, and they literally freeze. I mean, they're just so worried about it. And I think, they suddenly come out. We've seen some disastrous things happen where head teacher took her own life, didn't she? Because maybe there were other issues. Who knows? But I mean, it's suddenly you've been a great school and go from excellent to sort of satisfactory, and no one's coming back in to help you navigate your way through in improving yourself. They come in, they do the tick box, and off they go. I'm hoping from some of these disasters that the inspectors now come in and do a more rounded job in a way. Or am I, again, you're in? I'll take that as maybe no then.
Well, again, as you know, I'm a storyteller. So the lovely thing about reversing into a charity as venerable as the licensed trade charity is that my school, as the principal of, have actually got now not a principal but a patron, and the patron's King Charles III. And so, isn't that lovely? Unfortunately, as we know, the royal family have people such as the man formerly known as Prince, who we can't have. Anything that is anything other than beautifully transparent. So effectively, one of the great things I've got out of no longer being a proprietor, how much I could be full of integrity. So you've actually got to reverse yourselves out of that position and make sure people can have public scrutiny of what you do. But that public scrutiny mustn't be just of what you do, but your impact. I mean, in the end, what if a kid comes into my school, whatever their ability, they come out with their engine running. And that's what schools got to understand, not have passive learners who've got 8 9s at GCSE. It won't mean anything. When does somebody else ask you about your A-levels, mate?
That's what I'm saying. That's why Clare's Court is so good. I have seen the development of these children. I came and spoke to your year 13s, did I not, last year, that were about to go to university. And they were just, and just when you get to year 13, there is definitely a choice. But nonetheless, all the other children I've taught in your schools, they're bright, they are enjoying their learning. And that comes from you guys, because I have this expression that says a fish rots from the head down. Whatever organization it is, you will see excellence because the person at the top is excellent and innovative and always looking. You're always looking. You never sit there and go, oh, this is cozy. This is nice. How can I do it better? And you took in some children from Ukraine, and that was a lovely thing to get them established. And then now James is getting into AI. Now I'm going to ask you the $3 million question. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for learning? What do you think?
Well, like all technologies, it's got to be understood, and regrettably, a little bit like the motor car, Benz had no idea what he and his little factory were creating when they produced a combustion engine. They never know actually would end up with global warming. So we've got to be very careful about what AI means. So the real problem happened with AI when it came in effectively on the smartphone in 2007. What started happening in 2015, 2016 was the social media gurus started making the AI machine start working out who you were, and let's just feed you the stuff that you'll become addicted to. And as a result of which, suddenly people start scrolling, because if they scroll, something else will be interesting there. Something else will be interesting there. Now, you and I know if we pick up a newspaper, particularly I take the Times, you can guarantee that either on page 1 or page 2 or page 3, there's a picture of a royal. I'll just ignore that, But if I pick up the Guardian, there'll be nothing about royalty on it and nothing about independent education. So in the end, you pick a newspaper and you run through it, and some you like, some you don't. In scrolling, you like it all. And the trouble is it feeds into the negative channel. So where do I find AI takes us now? Answer, you've got to stay in top of it. And that's why Google invited me in to become Teacher Academy, Google Certified Innovator in 2012. And I've stayed alive to it ever since. And I did a talk on Wednesday, just before Auntie Zelda was showing in the idea of smartphone-free childhoods. And how can a school like mine have a smartphone-free organisation until they're 11. That means no smartphones at all at home or at school, into a school that actually has Chromebooks and machines and devices whereby they're learning how to use AI. Now, I don't think we can be in control of AI, but at least we can use it. Anthropic, remember, lovely AI tool, the owners of that who've just given up, they don't have, Facebook their children don't have AI. They don't have any contact. So we've got to be very careful. What I know AI is going to do to us is, it's going to give better surgery. It's going to give us loads of things that we hadn't conceived of. And when we move from current parallel processing to, and whatever you want to call it, into multiple dimensional AI, we're going to end up with a situation where AI for the first time will be able to be far more creative than the current machines we've got. Now, I know and you know, we have the way our neurons work in our brain there. It's not just three-dimensional. We actually can think back in time or look forward in time. And I go sleep at night not knowing the answer. I wake up in the morning, the answer's there. So I think we are still capable of taking charge of it. But when I need a new eye in 10 years' time, I'll have one. It'll be bolted in. We'll be a mixture. Think of Brave New World. We're going to end up with we've got to stay in control of it. Otherwise, we will be subordinate to it. And
I think the danger is as well, though, is making sure that children fact check. I mean, my little granddaughter's 5 and they're teaching her all about AI. And I just said, whatever because it's just going to grow and grow. And I was listening to a program on 5 Live the other day, and there was this guy on about AI, and he was saying how rapidly it's come on in the last 5 years. Its development is off the scale. But also, as you say, there are the good bits, as long as you fact check and you're careful this is the other thing, you're careful what you put out about yourself on social media, because AI scrolls it, doesn't it? It goes through Google to try and find stuff, and it matches it up. I was dealing with a lad a couple of years ago. He's a footballer, actually. Can't say who it was. But in AI, he was contacted, and in the most awful situation, it had taken his voice and everything about him, and he found himself in court for something that he was not at. How do you prove it when it's so... he's gone.
I'm here.
You're there. I mean, how do you prove that? It's really difficult to prove it because it is so similar. And a lot of these awful child abuse images that are being created on AI, they're now having to be looked at as real cases. I mean, because it's so extraordinary. But I do agree. I mean, this is extraordinary, though, James, that you are Google certified evangelist and a leader in integrating AI into the classroom. Wow, full marks.
Well, the thing is, look, I'm holding up this thing here. Now, AI can do this image, but it won't tell you why I want this in my room. So the thing about art and the arts more generally is you can come up as Salvador Dali with stuff that we couldn't, and we wouldn't like it. And suddenly this societal thing's coming around and say, wow, that's interesting. You're making those choices. Now, that's a bit that AI will never get to because it's an emotional heart thing. A lovely guy I taught a few years ago at my senior school, Joe Reeve, he never bothered going to university. He's been one of these great digital gurus, and he's now late 20s. And he, having sold out his 2 companies straight away, he decided he's doing 2 things now. One, trying to do the Mayor of New York thing on the London Underground, making sure trains aren't covered in paint. And secondly, he's come up with this brilliant thing on his phone, an app, whereby you can point it at any piece of art or statue you want, and it'll tell you all about that. Now, isn't that brilliant? You can walk around London, you see these random statues there, and you've got no idea who they are, and suddenly we get an appreciation. And that's where we as human consumers can appreciate things in a way that AI can't do.
That's right. My daughter-in-law is head of natural science and everything at a private boys' and her lad, my grandson, who's now 13, showed some interest in mushrooms, and so she got this app, and so then they go out walking. I mean, what he knows about mushrooms and toadstools and all of that is extraordinary, all because she's looked at it and said, oh, this is this is that, this is the other. So it's absolutely brilliant. It really is. I mean,
but remember the 80-20 rule. Remember the 80-20 rule. If you're an educator, the rule is 80-20. Only 20% of the time using screens. You've got 80% of the time, they've got to give them the Ladybird book. They've got to work out in between the weft and weave of pages, there's things to appreciate. Boredom's an important thing, but not boredom on your own in a dark space. Give them things whereby they can enjoy themselves.
Yes, I find sometimes as well, it's all go, that the children, it's like, oh, it's piano music tonight. Oh, it's so-and-so tomorrow night. Oh, it's netball the next night. Then it's swimming. And for goodness sake, do these children ever get time to relax? And I think as a music teacher, I always used to say, I am teaching you a recreation. Recreation means recreate. So, relax and recreate yourself, I think. So, I mean, if you have your last lesson that you're ever going to teach in your life, what would that lesson be?
Well, it would be with children in front of me. I think I would take a group of 12 and 13-year-olds. And in fact, I did this the other day. I'd recreate the piece of history that you want them to understand. And the piece of history we did with Year 7, Lord and Lady Palmer at Dorney Court are happy to let me borrow their wedding venue for a day, which is Dorney Court, and we recreate the arrival of Prince Rupert, that's me, and King Charles, over Maidenhead Bridge to prepare in the fields of Colnbrook for the Battle of Brentford. And we have 4 cycles around this. So this is my creation, and it's played out by my colleagues. So one of us, I'm Prince Rupert, so I introduce the day and finish the day. But in the middle of it, you've got 2 a Catholic and a Protestant priests talking to each other in the church, or the chapel of St. James's the Lesser, arguing about, telling the kids about the difference between the purple heaven of Catholics and the blue heaven of Protestants. And actually, there's no difference between them, but actually the way it's conveyed. And the kids learn that. And again, in the 2 sets of pews in the chapel, then argue their cases. And it's absolutely brilliant. And behind that, they then go and see the monument to William Gerard and his wife, whereby underneath it, huge, great big concrete ball. At the bottom, there are 11 children there, and 5 of them are holding skulls. And the kids learn what that means, because in those days, a memorial, obviously after Sir William and Lady Garrett died, the memorial wanted to celebrate the whole family, and what the children holding skulls meant that these children have not survived the parents. And when the kids realise, they come out of that after an hour, blimey, they know about faith. Then they go in and do pike drill with and this rotates round. So then they do pike drill to turn the rabble. When Prince Rupert meets them coming into the premises, I call them a rabble, but by the end of the day, you'll be the King's loyal troops. And then, of course, they do pike drill for the hour, drumming and so on. Then they go into do some craft work with macrame and so on, because, of course, there was no cash then. You know, this rabble had come to Dorney Court because there was no money around. I mean, let's face it, and there was no food around. The only way they're going to get fed was to go and be part of the King Charles's army. And so they then learn how to make macrame things and kind of work out the value. And the final set of groups say, look, these troops are going to be bored. So you're going to learn actually some Shakespeare and some other playwright or comedy of the time, and actually learn how to perform that in front of them. And at the end of the day, the boys and girls start off, no, they won't work together. So by the end of the day, they're all over the ideas of here are boys and girls being forced to being members of the army and loving a day and time. And that, when you see learning happen, remember the thing that's always important about learning, you don't learn from a book. You learn from being able to talk about it.
Absolutely,
and by
that's right.
the language, then if it's dyslexia, won't matter. You know the story.
That's absolutely right. And it's the same way with travel. Travel opens their minds. I mean, my daughter lives in Bermuda, and her little ones, they'd be perfectly capable of getting on a plane on their own now. But the experiences that they've been to and seen and all that sort of stuff is mind-blowingly, it expands the mind. I'd like to come on that. Can I come next year?
Well, that's it. I mean, fortunately, the Lord and Lady Palmer have a thing called the Palmer's Ashes, where the Palmer brothers play cricket against each other each summer.
Oh, wow.
This day it's going to be the first Sunday in September, and then so they borrow that for the day at our playing fields just up the road from them, and then we go over there, and it's a great piece of work we do. Remember the phrase "smell the coffee." Smell the coffee is what we want to remember. These kids.
We are coming to the end in the next 5 minutes. I still want to ask you 2 or 3 more questions. Which so you've had thousands of children pass through your school. I mean, is there one that you could see as that child really amazed me, that quiet success where you think, yes?
There's too many of them, honestly, I would say, and they come from each generation. So I think my first head boy, Andrew Halfaker, joined his family business, didn't go to A-levels, didn't go to university, ran a lovely family business for the 40 years he could, and then knocked on the door last summer, just turned up and say, this is Andrew, said, James, I just want to tell you, I'm retiring, mate. 13 years, oh, swine, how dare he retire? That's the kind of thing, because he's just fed up with the complaints and the complexity of the things. But then you go through a wonderful guy called Mark Richardson, one of the great world champion runners, got his gold medal presented to him only last summer, because he and Roger Black in that 400-meter team got it belatedly because the Americans were disqualified, and eventually they were awarded. He got it last summer. He said, when asked, would you have liked it in 1998 or would you like it now? He said, I want it now because my children never appreciate. Dad wasn't a has-been athlete, I'm an athlete now. And that isn't a lovely message, because we're all has-been to our children. What do we do? There's another guy now, just a generation below that, Jonathan Trevor, who his mum was a maths teacher, and Jonathan was, shall we say, a shy, retiring, less than ambitious child. I mean, he's now the professor of business and economics at Said Department of Oxford University. I mean, the most unlikely person then, now, without doubt, and never would be selected being a stopper. That's something now is leading the world in terms of business thinking. And finally, of course, I've got my own generation kids. I mean, I've got 6 members of my family who've gone all the way through the school, 2 sons, 4 nieces. They're all just brilliant exampons of what makes Clares Court work. They've got engines running. Unfortunately, they managed to get the...
It is a family school. You don't see many staff that leave. It's incredibly cohesive, and it's really good. It's an amazing school. It really is. I mean, I also, because I have this thing about my recreation thing. I don't know. Again, when I'm driving around, I often have 5 Live on, and there was a guy that had written a book about the brain. And he said we have, we only use about a quarter of our brain, don't we, all the time that we're alive? I mean, it's shocking, really. But he said we have the executive part of our brain that is always work, 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 work. And then we have the creative part of our brain. Now, he said, if you go, which I thought this was amazing. He said, so I walk the dog every morning and I just zone out because I'm right in the middle of the field, so I can see beautiful views, etc., the sunrise, etc., etc. He said, if you do that 10 or 15 minutes a day, or just stop and sit on a park bench, or just sit in your garden, don't really think, just don't really do anything, for 15 minutes a day, your creative brain capability increases by 50%. 50%. How many people actually stop, and they're always busy, just stop and reflect, or not really think about anything, just a chilled space where because how on earth, James, do you relax?
Well, I relax as much as anything by enjoying the kind of thing you asked me about. And I recognise in telling about the people who inspired me. I think I'll finish with Ellie Wood. She's now kind of just turned into her 40s, and she became a great author. You may know some of her books, my Secret Teenage Rockstar Boyfriend, and so on. Now, again, people win, whatever stardom it is, and Ed Sheeran's very good about this. Success never gives you any reward at all. And then what you have to do is keep failing and learn what that means. And Ellie's turned herself, although she's still right, turned herself into a great coach of other people. And if we can help people become not just selfish in their own bodies, but become actually giving and generous. So when you say, how do I relax? I just love being big, helping other people. I know that sounds odd, but people like you say, well, how can we support you? The answer, we can, because you do amazing work in safeguarding schools, and you're noisy and loud, and actually people don't like that, do they, because you tell them the truth. You're wrong. That's what I love about you. And when other people stand up and say, look, actually, we need to teach the world to be a safer place and a better place, well, that's the thing to do, and that's why I love you and your work.
Oh, thank you so much, James. So we're talking about this as a mutual appreciation society. I mean, I hope this goes out and you fill your school with more pupils, because I kid you not, I have been to so many schools, private, independent, boarding, you name it. I've been to the back end of, nowhere, where it was just absolutely hideous with, I don't like shouty schools. There's no need to shout at children. You don't. You just have this, there is this respect within the children of not just respect, but also the expectation, and yet the freedom to grow and develop and change and experience new things. And really, no door is shut to them. It is a remarkable school. And like you see, my kids, everybody says to me, oh, you're doing too much. But if you can help someone, the reward from just helping someone for no money, but the fact that, I'm getting contacted all the time by people who have got terrible, sad lives. And if I can signpost them, if I can be that phone call just for maybe, 2 or 3 months and help them hold their hand in a way emotionally, then that's then that to me, that is my enjoyment. I'm with you on there, James. And on this note, I am going to thank you hugely for your time, because I mean, it's amazing. And as I say, what I do love is that you look at the whole child holistically, and you turn out real human beings at the end of it, and all credit to you. But also that comes from the way you manage the staff, the way you select the staff, the way you recruit them, all that. I mean, it's extraordinary. So I get worn out when I see your energy. I really do, but I need to come back down and see you. So James, thank you so much. And I hope people will enjoy this, because I think people don't understand education. They don't, oh yeah, you learn stuff, but the very thing that goes on in a teacher's mind to, you know, I feel I was born a teacher. You were the same. Yes, it evolved through your parents, but it's in there. It's absolutely in there. So I thank you. I thank you. And have a great weekend, and keep on pushing and shoving forward and opening those doors. Opportunities.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you. So, wow, I mean, I really enjoyed that, because being an educator myself, I always like talking to other people, and I love the passion and the energy and the enthusiasm that James still has, as all his teachers do. No child is ever written off, and that is extraordinary. He has got children with difficulties at the school, but they're all treated as equals and all brought on through whatever their situation is. So I thank him hugely. God bless you, James. And so next week we will be having somebody on who has. So I had a lot of mental health issues, and this organization brought me through it in 8 one-week sessions. So I never felt suicidal again, and never have. And it's called the Thrive Program. And we have James Woodworth coming on, and it's another extraordinary organization to save people years and years of being stuck in with some sort of therapist. So I'm going to say bye-bye now. This is Marilyn Hawes with Heart and Soul, and you'll find us on Unprecedented TV. Take care, God bless, and thank you for listening.